All right, welcome everybody to today's Databook Tech Roadmap Roundtable. The idea here is for Ivan, our new CTO of Databook, to introduce himself. He's going to show you a glimpse of what's to come on the roadmap. So I know we've got a lot of Databook customers. We might have some non-customers. This is going to be a great introduction to Databook as well as what's on the horizon. So feel free to ask any questions. That's the whole point of this. We want to get interactive. Quick run of show. We're going to breeze through these opening slides. Don't worry, they'll take a minute or two. We're going to have Ivan present himself along with the product roadmap preview. So there'll be a demo. You'll see lots of cool things coming. And again, ask questions in the chat. Ask questions on camera. The whole point here is for Ivan to meet you, ask what's on your mind, and we'll get you tons of answers and more info. And yes, the recording will also be shared. Everybody can feel free to get comfortable. The whole idea here is roundtable. Get to see each other, hear each other. We welcome it. It's the whole point. Get interactive. Now think of a topic, a question that you might have for Ivan and the product roadmap of Databook. Something might be on your mind, a special feature, maybe something sparks interest along the way. Feel free to add it to the chat. We'll be moderating and we'll tee you up. Some questions that might come up are what's going to happen in the next few months, what's on the horizon, how is the voice of the customer going to continue to shape the product. DatabookGPT, that'll be a huge part. We have a beta test that's undergoing right now, so Ivan will shed more light on that and how we're segueing into a launch, and just AI in general. Everybody can feel free to quickly introduce yourself, add your name, your company. Again, feel free to ask questions, conversation starters, anything on your mind. This is being put on by our user community. So if you're not already a member, go on over to Databook Connect. Sarah, who's head of our content, will share a link. This is going to be a great place to learn more about Databook, get tips and tricks, meet other customers, interact with the staff. We're just getting started with this, so there's going to be a ton of new content. So join now, and then we'll roll out tons of stuff that'll help you. We already have a lot of stuff already there to greet you. Insider secrets from other customers, helpful guides. Our team has some great content that really helps accelerate your usage. So check that out. Also, we have past recordings. So plenty of familiar faces. You might know John Barrows, Scott Leese, Jacqueline Cortella, and more. So this recording will join them as well. Let us know what you want to see for an event. We put on events all the time. So give us your ideas. There's a challenge in there where you can just add your thoughts. And we also do giveaways. We give away gift cards. And this month we're giving away a Sonos Era 100. Speaking as an avid customer of Sonos, I really recommend these. I have them all over the house. So get some sweepstakes entries, win that. There's the link. Sarah shared it. But definitely join. It only takes a minute. Now, I'm going to introduce Ivan, and I'm just really going to let him take it away from here. But Ivan, why don't you just give a quick intro, tell us a little bit about your background and what really drew you to Databook and what's exciting about the role and all that's to come before you share the roadmap.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. And welcome, everyone. I know we have a large number of customers and we also have a number of guests. Thank you for joining us. So a little bit about myself, and then we'll jump in to talk about the roadmap that we have. So I joined Databook last month. My career to date has been primarily in various roles around data and AI and data science. More recently, I was the head of data science and AI at Atlassian, where I led the data science team, product management team, and the data engineering team for 5 years. Before that, I was at Box, joined pre-IPO, and worked very closely with the sales team and with the go-to-market team. Before that, I was at PayPal, and after doing a graduate degree, I did a stint in consulting and then moved to Wall Street for over 5 years, building software algorithms and electronic trading for the equities division at Barclays. And really excited to be here. Reason why I joined Databook, it's around the space of sales and go-to-market. Sales, it's a really challenging area. And I got to experience it at first hand when I was at Box close to 10 years ago. And then I've had the privilege of working with multiple go-to-market teams since then. And the notion of a seller coming from a more technical background was a little bit foreign to me. And by partnering very closely with counterparts, heads of sales, heads of marketing, with CRO at Atlassian, I got to appreciate the challenges and also the opportunities of bringing data and in recent years, bringing the power of AI to make it easier to reduce a lot of the manual workflows that exist in sales. And for Databook in particular, I got really excited about the notion and why it exists, which I'm going to be sharing in over the coming slides. So let me share the slides and then we can start. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction about who we are as a company for some of you that maybe are either newer customers or are interested in Databook but are not familiar with the company. And then I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the problem statement. What do we do? And then our approach to that problem statement. And then at that time, I'm going to pivot over to a quick view of our product today, as well as an exciting launch that we have coming up next month. And then early peek into things that we're working on that are currently in development that will come up over the coming months and quarters. So let's start with who we are. So we focus on building, on creating accounts intelligence, and we partner with some of the most exciting and largest sales teams in the world. And we included some names on the right-hand side here. For customers that we've worked with, we've noticed an increase between 1.9 and 2.1 increase in pipeline within the first year that we partner with them. And more than 25% increase in sales productivity. Now, those are impressive numbers. How do we do this? We do this by unifying all of go-to-market functions around customer centricity. And you're going to be hearing more on this as I go through the current product, as well as some exciting new things that we're working on. The focus of Databook, it's really around unifying all of the various functions, whether we're talking about account executives or SDRs or sales enablement or sales operations, around grounding it, around understanding what the customer's needs are. That's critical for everything that we do. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges in this space. So on the left-hand side, it's a graph of the sales and marketing cost as a percent of net new revenue. And what you notice is that there's been an increase over the last several years, and that increase has been quite sharp. Just within the last 2 years, the cost of acquiring customers, or CAC, has increased by 60%. At the same time, if you look at a typical enterprise account executive, around 60% of account EAs are not hitting sales quota. Those are not pretty numbers in any way that you look at this. Now, what have sales organizations done to change this? Well, a typical sales organization, you have a small portion of account executives that do incredibly well. The bulk of the team is struggling, even just to meet quota. And there's been a lot of volume, but mostly transactional sales. And some of the levers that organizations have taken in reaction to this is by either adding additional support roles, creating new incentives, carving different ways of territories, or investing in enablement. And all of these are very helpful. However, they also come at a cost of productivity. And what we want to focus on is how can we add value through account intelligence in key moments that we've seen time and time again would have an inordinate productivity gain across the sales org. In addition to increasing the absolute stars, the 30% of account executives that are real stars, we also want to move the majority of the sales team to the right of this graph. How do we do this? Salesforce did a survey several years ago, around 3 years ago, and they identified 6 specific moments where account intelligence is absolutely critical. And I'm going to go through this very quickly. I want to spend the majority of my time focused on the roadmap, but just to highlight and give you a flavor of these. One is account propensity. Second one is the strategy for the account, prospecting, and then you move into creating pipeline, obviously meeting with customers, and then doing deal review. And the percentages are the average time that account executives spent for each one of these 6. What we found is that by ingesting high-level, high-quality account intelligence and these 6 specific points in time within a sales cycle, we can have an inordinate impact to the overall sales productivity. How do we do this? We have this framework of 5 steps. All of us, at some point in our career, have experienced product selling. This is very basic when somebody is really focusing on their product, focusing on their product features. We believe that there is a lot of value that can be unpacked by moving from left to right here. And mentioning the step 5, for example, is focused on understanding the strategic goals, priorities for your customer, understanding the challenges of your customer. So instead of focusing on your product that you have to sell, you start with understanding what are the needs of the customers, what are top of mind for their C-suite. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, James.
Hi, James, did you have a question? Okay, I'll just mute. You're good, Ivan.
Yeah. So instead of starting with your product, the starting point should be a deeper understanding of your customers and what they care about and the overall context that they are living in terms of their competitor space, and then framing your product and solutions in a way that can add value to them. And it's a very different approach. It makes sense, but you'll be surprised how few sales teams or individual sales account executives do this really well. This is the focus of Databook. How do we do this in a way that doesn't result in a lot of manual effort of having large supporting teams to an account executive team to do this manually? How can we empower account executives and sellers to do this at scale? And a few weeks ago, I was having dinner with a head of sales, and this gentleman was saying that he's finding that his top sellers are finding themselves spending more and more time doing research because the landscape is shifting. There is more complexity. Obviously, the addition of AI, it's creating yet another layer of complexity. And obviously, he wanted more of his top sellers spending face time with their customers. Databook enables that. So let's look a little bit about what does this mean from the current product. And then also I'll give you a quick peek to DatabookGPT. So before I jump into the current product, level 5 selling that we were talking about, it's rooted around deeper understanding of your customers. What does this mean? This means that at the very least, you need to be able to answer some of the following questions, like what are the customers' priority? How are your solutions aligning with their top executive focus areas? Have you done this before? What are the potential value? So let me pivot over to the current product And I picked up a random company, 3M, and within the current product, there is a focus on a number of different levers. And then how does this specific account focus? How are they doing? While they're doing really well from a gross margin perspective, there are certain areas of that maybe like they're doing less well. And so I want to deep dive into the first area here, growth. And I want to have a better visibility into what are driving this delay, this gap in growth. I have the ability to define the competitive set. I can add any companies or remove any companies that are specific to the team within this account that I'm going to be talking to. And automatically, I have a clear view financially across a number of different metrics. How do they compare? If I go back to the main page, I can start looking into some of the levers, financial levers. So in terms of the total shareholder return, I'm breaking it into sub-components, and each of these components I can further click down. And it gives you like full visibility of all the various levers, and I can go even deeper. I can go, and for each one of these levers, I can go to specific references, whether it's a conversation that their CEO had, or it could be an analyst report, and all of these are included within the product itself. Let's suppose I want to look into the business case that I'm having. All of the information, whether it's financial or whether I want to understand what does 1 percentage point improvement in a particular area, how does that impact the bottom line, so that when I'm framing my product, I can frame it with data available. Going back to the top page, I also want to understand what is the right timing to have a conversation. So if I scroll further down, and I'm skipping through a lot of richness, I just wanted to give you a taste of what's available today. I also have what are the key decision points. So typically the 3 months before the end of the financial year is when budgets are finalized. If you're starting a conversation during this period, it's typically not the right period to have that conversation. The teams are focused on building the budget for the previous year. So knowing when you should be starting a conversation, it's really helpful. And then finally, I'm going to scroll back up. There is also a score. The score is driven off 4 separate categories. So let me click here. And essentially there are, what is the financial case for change? What is the buying cycle? What's the management intent based on recent conversations, analyst reports, presentations to Wall Street, to research, etc. And then what's the investment sentiment? So that's all available today. Now, next month, we're going to launch an additional product called DatabookGPT, and I wanted to give you a flavor of that. So the underlying data is the same. One of the feedback that we've got about the product itself is that there is a lot of richness, lots of great information, but sometimes some sellers are that are familiar with what they are looking for. It's very easy to derive that richness. Other sellers, maybe they are earlier in their tenure, they want to be able to ask a simple question and get the answer. And DatabookGPT can provide that. So let me pivot over to DatabookGPT. We've been running a pilot for several months. If you or team members in your company have been testing the pilot, I want to thank you. The feedback that we got back has been incredibly helpful, and we're really excited with the quality of the product that we're going to have available once we launch it. So earlier this morning, I was looking at the same account at 3M, and maybe I want to start with what is the business model for 3M? And so I have a summarized version of 3M's business. And maybe I want to dig a little bit deeper. What are the main industry challenges for 3M? Now, there's a big difference between asking the same question to DatabookGPT or asking any other LLM. And I'll be talking about the architecture in a few slides, but the primary difference is that we're leveraging large language model to translate a question in simple English into what does it really mean. We're leveraging an LLM for that. However, when we are pulling data, we're pulling our own proprietary data where you have a high level of accuracy and trust. And I'll cover this in a second. Moreover, since we've built all of this internally, we also have the ability to structure the answer to a specific account. So in this case, this very basic question of what are the main industry challenges, we're talking about the strategic priorities for the space that 3M operates in. We're talking about the financials. We're talking about thought leadership, and we summarize it. And all of these are customizable per account, which I'll get to in a second. So let me go back to the presentation. And now I'm going to pivot over in terms of what are we doing with this product. So we're launching it next month. There are a number of other really exciting elements that we're including. One of them is integrations. So let me step back and think and look at what are the three broad areas that our product roadmap is focused on. Very simply, they're addressing three separate requests or questions. The first request is that we hear constantly from seller teams is that sales leaders want their sellers to spend less time going through multiple applications and shorten the time to value. If they have a question, they want them to get to the answer as soon as possible so they can spend more time meeting with customers, having face time where they can add the majority of their value. One part of that is that we want to make it easy for customers. We want to be where they work. We have an application. If they want to come to our application, they're more than welcome. At the same time, we also recognize that there are innovations within certain customers building new surfaces where they want their sellers to spend the majority of their time. Part of this is Sales Copilot that we're gonna mention in the next slide, and others, like some customers, we've heard that their sellers spend the majority of their time in their Teams or in their Slack. Irrespective of where they work, we want to make it really easy for those sellers to access the richness, the account intelligence that we have to offer in the places where they work. That's one broad category, and I'll give a few examples in a second. Second category is that we hear constantly is that it's hard for sellers to keep track with what is going on that are related to their accounts. And ideally, you don't want sellers to be looking for information. An ideal way is that information comes to them. And we're spending a lot of time thinking and working on building agentic workflows to do just that. The last part is multimodal interaction. The rise of LLMs are making it easier to build tools where it makes it less friction for a user to consume information in the way that they would like. Let's go into like some examples. The first three examples that I'm going to go through are around Copilot integrations, and I'm going to highlight our Microsoft integration. There are other integrations that I'm not using as an example, for example, Einstein from Salesforce and Slack. The first example is part of the Microsoft Copilot for Sales in Outlook. Suppose that a sales rep is replying to an existing account and they want to get more information, specific account intelligence from the account. In this case, that's already being fed from Databook within the same pane or surface area. So we don't have to go to another tool for that. The next one is from M365, from Microsoft 365 Chat. In this case, the sales rep wants to have a potential opportunities within this account. And again, the information, the richness that we already have within our tool, you don't have to go and seek it. We'll provide it to you within the surface area that you are. The next example is also from Microsoft 365. I have a meeting with an account, and I want to figure out what are the main new opportunities that I want to focus on. And that's available for you within the surface area that you're working on. So those are 3 examples of integration. We'll be talking about our API and our integrations in the coming months. Let's pivot over to agentic workflows. So the notion of agentic workflows is that we want something, our AI, to do work for us on our behalf. So in this particular case, let's imagine that we have an account executive. They are preparing for a meeting. When I talk with sales reps, when I talk with account executives, it's quite surprising how much time they spend away from meeting with customers. A lot of that time, it's either researching or building presentations. And over time, if we really want to increase sales productivity, we want to maximize the time of the individual spending with their customers and reduce any other efforts that they're doing while still improving the efforts themselves. So like in this case, we go through a series of simple questions with DatabookGPT. And out of that, we have a good understanding of what they want to focus the meeting on. And by the end of it, you have a presentation. Now, in the current web application, we already provide, for the accounts that you select, we provide a very rich presentation that's available for all of our customers, over 40 pages. So the capability, it's already there. It's one of the most popular features that we have within our web app. We're working to integrate that within specific workflows. So sometimes you want a longer presentation, sometimes you want to have a QBR, and you want to have a one-page summary of all the strategic initiatives for your account. A number of other customers told us that they would like us to integrate with first party, with their own data, for example, CRM and calendar. And that's also an area that we're actively working on to make it simpler how we create presentations that would contain both third-party information that we provide today, in addition with first party, to reduce the time that they are spending on doing the presentation and spending more time thinking around how do they focus, how do they understand the customer, and then frame the best way, their solution, their product to the customer. The last example of agentic workflow is related to the notion of we have a richness of information and we're constantly adding data, third-party data. More recently, we've been investing in adding contact data. It's an area that we've heard from a lot of customers that they need. We're also adding technographic information. So for a given account, for a given company, what type of software do they use? That number of sellers find that very helpful. Now, it's one thing to have this information. The other thing that you have to figure out when information changes that are related to my accounts. That takes a lot of effort, and we can automate that. And part of this updates, real-time updates, is that over time we'll have self-serve categories that a particular user of Databook can select. And then when we notice, we'll track changes within the data that we have in near real time. When we see a pattern taking place, we would provide an alert to the individual. And what we have in our roadmap is that The alert can happen through GPT itself, or it can happen through any other means that's chosen by the individual. For example, getting a text when a particular change takes place. Okay, let's switch from agentic workflows to multimodal. This is really interesting. This is still at the ideation stage, so earlier level in development, but it's super helpful. So imagine that I have a presentation to give, or I'm being asked to give a presentation. I'm going to take a look at who is attending the presentation, what are their background, and what's their focus areas. I want to understand recent conversation, emails, or any other message that I have with them that can help me frame the conversation. Now, this happens to all of us. Imagine that we have a agent that can look at calendar, look at recent conversations, and then help me figure out what data would be best related for the specific conversation and create a sales deck. So I can spend my time thinking about how should I focus on the content, not finding the data points for the content that I'm going to present. So this is on multimodal interaction. Let me pivot over on the primary difference between consumer-grade applications and enterprise-grade applications before I'll spend a half a minute talking about the architecture for our product and specifically for DatabookGPT. In my experience working in enterprise companies for the last 10 plus years, accuracy and trust are absolutely crucial. And one of the main difference between having a consumer-grade application, including an LLM, versus Databook is that every answer that we provide is grounded in proprietary data sets that we've included and invested human in the loop to make sure that only actual and factual information is being shared with the user. The last thing that your seller wants is to share something to a prospect with incorrect information or hallucination of an LLM, for example. Second area that is absolutely crucial is trust. When we're sharing an information, we're also including the source of that information. And I didn't point this out when I was doing the quick demo of DatabookGPT, but as you're going through the answer, we're including the link of where that piece of information is coming from. So you have full context. Now, these are must-haves, but are not enough. There are two other areas that we're spending a lot of time thinking about from a product and engineering perspective. First one is around personalization. One of the requests that we keep getting from our customers is that typically the request would be like, I love your third-party information. Can you help me contextualize it for a given sales rep and for a given time within a sales cycle? And that's an area that we want to improve and build on. Obviously, having actionable intelligence is helpful, but whether if the source, if the requester is a senior account executive with a lot of experience versus somebody who is starting their career, we might want to frame the answer in a little bit differently that adds more value to them. Same thing is whether you're creating an account plan versus you've been working on a particular account for several months. The contextual element of the account intelligence differ, and we want to make sure that over time we improve that level of personalization. And then lastly is the proactiveness. Having individuals spend time looking for changes in the data is not their best time. It's not time well spent. We want to do that on your behalf and have agents that you can select what categories are top of mind and then have proactive nudges come to you. So very quickly in terms of the architecture for Databook, both the web app and specifically for the DatabookGPT, we spend a lot of time focusing on creating, aggregating high quality data. This includes financial information, it includes annual reports, it includes transcripts that executives have with the street. It includes also proprietary data that we have. And then out of this data, we've built over time proprietary insights. When I mentioned this core a few slides, when I was talking about the web app application, there are proprietary insights on top of this data, including management intent, financial case for change, and so on. We're starting to invest based on requests that we got from our customers to also integrate with first-party data. We don't have it available yet, but it would be available later this year. And so there is a lot of value to unpack by connecting the third-party richness of data that we already have with first-party information. And we want to do this in a way that it would respect the privacy with our customers, in a way that data never leaves the customer's ecosystem. We pass all this richness into a semantic index and a customer graph, and then we have a conversation engine on top of this that would translate a simple question in English into identifying what are the relevant data points that we need to pull. Lastly, I wanted to do a high-level summary of what's on the roadmap. So in development, we have a number of efforts around signals, those proactive nudges that I mentioned, citations, so that every time you get an answer within DatabookGPT, there is a clear link of citations where that data is coming for any type of citations. I mentioned that we've been investing in increasing and expanding third-party data, including contact data and technographic data. Slack app and the dynamic LLM switching are two areas that we're investing. The dynamic LLM switching would be available by the time of GA. So accounts can decide what LLM they might prefer. Right now, we're using OpenAI, but within a few weeks, we're going to open up, and so it becomes a decision that the customer can select. And then for Slack app, I mentioned integrations with where sellers are. In terms of what is planned and what's in discovery, there are broader investments on those three areas that I mentioned. The first area are different levels of integrations. Second level is around agentic workflows, and starting with integrating ourselves with sales workflows to make it easier to reduce time spent doing stuff versus or searching for data versus having more time investing in account intelligence and meeting with customers. And then lastly is the multimodal that we talked about. And so before I wrap up, quick summary of what's next. If you're a Databook customer, first of all, thank you for being our customer. You're going to have access to the DatabookGPT starting in mid-September. We have GA scheduled for September 10th. Every customer will have a 3-month free trial. We're working with a number of customers to customize their experience, whether they want to integrate it within an existing service or Copilot, or whether they want to customize the type of questions or answers. For example, a number of accounts want to be able to run A/B tests on a type of workflow that they have. And so they want to standardize the type of questions that their sellers would go through. And then that gives them the ability to start A/B testing framing to improve on the type of messaging that they have. That's really hard to do with as a sales team grows and you have a larger number of sales members in different corners of the world. This application would enable you to do that. If you have any questions, if you'd like to learn more about this, please reach out to your customer success manager or pose a question in the community. If you're not a customer yet, it's a perfect time to empower your sales team with strategic insights that are tailored to your particular context and company. You'll take advantage of the power of AI to cut down preparation time as well as cost, which is a top priority with most of our customers, so that your top sellers can spend more time with customers. If you want to book a demo, I included the link here. And with that, I'm gonna stop sharing and open up for questions.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for walking through that, Ivan. So much to process and so much great stuff. Definitely want to make sure the folks here raise your hand, ask a question in the chat. I also have some pre-seeded questions we can go to as well, but we just want to make sure while we have Ivan here, now's your chance to interact, ask away.
Can I start?
Absolutely, Tim. Go for it.
Great session, Ivan. Thank you very much. I'm curious, is a relationship map included in the ability of Databook so that you can now start to understand the politics and the influence within an organization?
Great question, Tim. It's not like we're including more contact information to start with, and that would be available by the time that we GA the DatabookGPT. We're investigating a number of sources for organizational maps. Some of the sources that we have access, have questionable data quality, and we weren't comfortable to share it. At the same time, we know that we hear this question a lot of times from sellers, and so it's only a question of time before we want to feel confident that when we're sharing an organizational map, that it meets a certain level of quality. But I'll share that once we have something in development in a future meeting. We don't have that in our roadmap right now. But thanks for mentioning that.
Thank you.
Who's got the next question? I have one docked up if we need to go to it.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that one that Tim asked? I was getting ready to type this in the chat.
Yeah.
But so I actually had relationship mapping down as a need that we have here, and I see your point is, as you all like putting a map out there, putting like org charts and stuff. But I mean, my interest would be in the ability to have the seller build a relationship map where if there's contacts in the tool, or maybe we could pull in from and I'm just gonna, I don't know if I can say other names out here, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, like where you can like take the contacts that are there and like build a map around that could be around like an opportunity, or it could be specific to a pursuit, things like that. That's more what I might be interested in, because then that data could, go into, the PowerPoint presentations and things like that.
Thanks, Leanne. That's an interesting angle that we haven't thought about. I mean, my understanding of what happens today is that sellers would include that information in their CRM, like Salesforce or whatever CRM that they have. If there is an integration with the CRM, which we plan to do, would that help? Or you're thinking about the ability for sellers to include that information directly with Databook?
I think it would help if it was in our integrated. We have a tool in our CRM right now that's it's not very user friendly. I mean, it's very time consuming to do, and it's I'm directional, right? So we're just putting information in, and this is the status of the relationship. Here's the politics there. There's the who owns this or whatever. But there's no feedback coming back, right? Let's say if roles change, or maybe this person posted something in on social media, or this person just spoke on a topic at in a public report, something like that, where you can be like, hey, you've got in your relationship map that you're trying to build a relationship with this person, and here they are. Here's some opportunities. So I would just like a more bi-directional relationship map. But then again, like I said, just whether it be in Databook or some way that's integrated into our CRM, that would be helpful.
That's a great point. Let me take it to our team. It's very interesting in alignment with a direction that we want to make the product more collaborative. It enables more around like teams. We know that the way that sellers work is that there's always a team effort. For an account executive, you're going to have multiple sales support teams that you're working with, and we want to enable that. This could be like a way to help create more collaboration, because that reflects how sellers work. Thank you. I would need to take it to our product team for evaluation and discussion, but it's very interesting.
Thank you.
I could give you a real world example. I won't do it here, but if you wanted to follow up, I have a real world example of an integration with relationship map that might work for what you're talking about.
Tim, I'll take you. If you we'll figure out a way to get connected.
Matt knows how to get in contact with me.
Yeah, I'll put you guys in touch. Thank you so much, Tim. And
Thanks,
thank you, Leon, for the question. We're going to make sure we get to Prashant. Prashant, do you want to go on mic for this, or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I can go through it. So hey, I'm from Oracle, so I've been using your product for some time. GPT is definitely one area we're looking at leveraging. I wanted to understand, looks like behind the scene using RAG architecture to gather all the data, index it, and use it with the LLM. I think that's correct, right?
That's correct, yeah. So basically the LLM, all it's doing is translating a question in natural language into what data points, what is the context, what data points do we need to pull. All the data is proprietary data. We're not going to the World Wide Web to pull a certain data. Like what you get in terms of the current web app application is the same information that is fueling DatabookGPT. It's just making it easier. And there is also a way for us to structure the answer that some customers have asked us to do. For example, like they want to consolidate types of questions that their sales account executives want to have in order to have consistent messaging. We can do that within DatabookGPT.
Got it. And then the follow-up question is, I'm not sure if it's beneficial to post-train or fine-tune any of those models that you have, or that you have any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, Prashant, we've been, and we continue to do a lot of that on an ongoing basis. So there's a lot of effort on the prompt engineering that can, like, we're having two different levels of effort on prompt engineering. One of it is to make sure that when a typical question is being asked, the way that it's being interpreted by the LLM is consistent with what the typical question is about. That's generic. There are also specific questions that for a particular account, the certain prompts, they would request that the structure of the answer is in a predetermined. And we have the ability to do that. And in fact, we're doing that with a number of customers within the pilot today.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next, we have Victor. Victor, do you want to go on mic, or would you like me to read yours aloud? I'll just read it quickly for you. Victor, you're on.
Just go ahead and read it on. That's fine.
Okay. Do you have any plans to incorporate DatabookGPT on enhanced recommendations for box point of view for the customers? That's over in the chat, Ivan.
Box point of view. Oh, for box point of view for the customers. Victor, I would need a little bit more context for box. Like different customers have different setups. Yesterday, I was talking with an account and they have a 9 box and it's very specific to their account. So from a prompt engineering perspective, it's very easy to structure that. If you're talking about something else, I would need to have a little bit more context to figure out if this is something that it's easy to do or not.
Yeah. So for example, when you go into any customer and you get recommendation or industry, call it industry thoughts for that customer or industry recommendation for that customer. Databook does a very good job of giving that information. What I see Databook lacking today is same analogy of completing the 4-point of view box for that customer. So for example, what's the value impact for that customer? Or maybe how can our organization align with that customer? Or maybe what have we done
This is Sean speaking.
the same thing before?
So, okay, Victor, thank you. I have a better understanding of the question. The answer is yes. All of that is configurable within DatabookGPT, within the prompt engineering. Right now, we're doing it ourselves specific to an existing account. So it's a little bit more involved. In the future, we are thinking about making it more configurable at the account level. So like the account owner would be able to configure an answer based on their account. But until we make that available on a self-serve basis, have a conversation with your customer success manager or post it in the community, and we'll get you connected with the right team to help configure that for your account. And as part of the GA effort, the customer success team is also doing an outreach for each account that we have to make sure that account owners have an understanding of the capabilities that we're making available for every customer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Victor. Next up, we have David. David, are you able to get on the mic for this one?
Yes, hi. And I had a quick question that I think, Ivan, you touched on this, but if you can share a little more how the hallucinations are prevented, or if there are any indicators for the sellers to know that, hey, take this information with a grain of salt.
Thanks, David. Great question. We've spent a lot of effort in the pilot focused on hallucination. So just for context, if you're asking a typical consumer-grade LLM, very often you cannot distinguish between information that is provided that is real facts or information that the LLM may be like either misunderstood the question or just made up. It's very common. The underlying models of LLMs are probabilistic. And so now, the way that we've built it, we're trying to make it as deterministic as possible within the prompt engineering layer. And so part of that is to ensure that we're understanding the question. And we've been refining, we have a team that is dedicated to doing this on an ongoing basis during the pilot. And we're making the product available for GA only after it has passed our internal test. Separate from that, if we don't understand the question, we're going to tell you that somebody will reach out to you to follow up. We're not going to make up an answer for the sake of making up an answer. We take the notion of enterprise grade as opposed to consumer grade very seriously. Enterprises and enterprise software has to have a very, very high bar, and we want to meet it within DatabookGPT. And if you have specific questions or more technical questions, more than happy to have a separate conversation to make sure that you're comfortable with that.
Thank you so much. That really makes the difference between like trusting the information versus not being sure. So thank you for answering that.
Thanks, Dave.
And Ivan, you've included your email here in the thread, so anybody feel free to reach out to Ivan directly and continue that conversation. We're almost up on time. I just want to be conscious of that. Would love to close out with one more, customer question from the group here. Anybody else have one last question to ask Ivan before we part? Ivan, the one thing I would just ask, since we have so many customers who attended today, when you and I first met, you talked about the importance, your dedication to interacting with customers, really incorporating feedback. What is the best way you see in the coming months for a customer to provide feedback and stay involved? Like, what is the best way a customer can really give you that feedback? And how have you already incorporated so much feedback along the way, if you don't mind recapping?
Sure. And thanks, Matt, for even giving me this opportunity. Like, I hope that we'll do this on an ongoing basis, maybe like once a quarter or once every 6 months, whatever makes sense. Having direct access and feedback to customers are really critical. Partly through our head of sales and our head of customer operations, I mean, either directly or indirectly with customer conversations, several of them every week. And so that's one source of feedback. At the same time, if you want to reach out directly, if you want to schedule time, I would really appreciate that. Like, I would appreciate the fact that we have direct conversation around what is working, what are some pain points, like what are some challenges that your sales team have and that we can help maybe figure out through the technology, through the data that we have. Lastly, over time, we also want to invest in a customer advisory board. And in previous roles at larger customers, I found customer advisory board to be an incredible value. I was on both sides of them. For a number of vendors, I was part of the customer advisory board. For previous companies, I was on the other side of getting input from customers in terms of what is working well, what are some gaps, what are some pain points that customers have. And I look forward to having that as another feedback channel. But if you're not sure, send me a direct email, and would look forward to having conversations.
Absolutely. And as we start to roll out enablement around Databook GPT, we'll always be including some material around Databook Connect, the community, because as Ivan said, this is a place that you can just jump in, you can add to the forum. We are monitoring. And again, as we go wider with the launch and announcement of that community, we also have plenty of activities scattered throughout that allow you to give direct product feedback. Everything will go to the team for review. And we want to build up that dialogue with people. That's so important to everybody's mission here. And we really just can't wait for you guys to really get your hands on the product and tell us what you think, right? Because we'll be working on it together and really giving people the forum to share their tips and tricks, because that's the best way I've always found people learn through the help of each other. So thank you so much to everybody. Thank you, Ivan.
Matt, one last message from the customer meetings that I've had the last 6 weeks that I've been around. It's fascinating how many sales teams how hard of a job sales teams are going through. It's a difficult environment. I mentioned around some of the challenges in terms of a percentage of sales team meeting sales quota. It's a hard job. We're here to help you with this journey. We're focused on this. We're focused with a very specific point of view around account intelligence that we believe, when applied at scale, can lead to significant improvement in productivity and unlocking larger deals. And so we're here to help you and to be there with you within this journey. We recognize how hard of a job you have. We want to make sure that we can add value to you.
Very well put. Great parting words. And thank you again to everybody. We will post this recording in the community along with snippets and materials that you guys can all review again. Thank you for this great conversation, Ivan. Thank you to everybody who attended. We will see you all very soon for the next one. Thanks. Have a great day.